Hello and welcome. In this session, we're going to look at how to prepare the limited company accounts on Taxcalc. Very important and very informative. This is one of the software is widely used most of the accountancy practice in UK. So Taxcalc is quite organized software. You have a lot of options. You have a lot of features in this software. For example, you have a practice management. You have a accounts production. You have a tax return production. You can do the individual tax return. You can do the AML check. So there's a lot of function you have on this software, and this software is quite popular in the UK for the accountancy practice. So we are looking at now the trial balance that we have prepared for the company Starwar Consultancy Limited. Based on this trial balance, we're going to prepare the accounts on Taxcalc. So this is our trial balance. We have to make sure the trial balance debit side and the credit side is equal. So based on the bookkeeping, the trial balance has to be matched. Remember that if the trial balance doesn't match, that means our financial statement will not be accurate. Very important. When you do the bookkeeping, make sure there is no suspense account. If there is a suspense account, if the trial balance doesn't match, you have to make sure you find the error and make a correction. And once we have the trial balance, only that time we can prepare the financial statement. So the first thing you have to do the bookkeeping. Either you use the bookkeeping software like QuickBook or Xero or Sage, or you can do the bookkeeping manually on Excel. And after having the bookkeeping, you need to make sure the trial balance is balanced before you actually proceed to prepare the financial statement for a limited company. Another thing you can see on the left hand side, we have a code. Now this code is based on the Taxcalc. So if you know how to use the code, that's absolutely fine. The reason we use the code so that we can do our work faster. For example, rather than typing accountancy fee, if we just type 3301, or rather than writing the sales income, if you just type 40, so the Taxcalc will pick the information very quickly. I'll show you later on the posting. When you type the code, it will automatically pick the right categories for the transaction. So very important. If you don't know how to find it out, I'll show you. There is a chart of account for the code, and you can find the right code for the accounts from there. Sometimes when you keep working on the same software for long enough, this type of code you'll remember, and that time the work will be really fast rather than typing the whole description. So that's our trial balance. That's based on the bookkeeping. Now we're going to open our software to have a look. How does it look like? What is the information there? And we try to prepare the account based on this trial balance. So let's have a look at our Taxcalc software. So once you open the Taxcalc software, it will be look like that. And it's very important to be used to with this information we have here. So you can see we have the practice manager, we have the communication, we have the e-signature. So we have a lot of features in the software, but actually we really don't need all of this. We only need three main categories. So the first one is the practice manager. So this is very important. Here we're going to create a client. So you can see here, create and manage the client. So for example, if we have a limited company, we have to create a client for the limited company. If we have an individual client, we have to create the client individually. But one thing you have to remember that's very important, even if you have a limited company, you have to create the relationship. So relationship between the directors and the company. So you have to create an individual client for a limited company in order to match the relationship. So for example, if we have a company, Star War Consultancy Limited, and if we just create an account for the Star War Consultancy Limited, and if we do not create the individual account for the directors, so when you prepare the account, so we will not be able to find the name of the directors, and obviously the director need to sign the report. So it's very important you create two accounts, individual and for the company, both under the practice manager. The next important one we have here, the tax return production. So once we have the practice manager completed, the next point or the next option that we're going to do, that will be the tax return production. Tax return production is very important. Here we're going to look at how to prepare the tax return. So obviously this will be our next step. after the accounts production. So first we do the practice manager, then we prepare the accounts based on the trial balance, so accounts production, and finally based on the accounts we make the tax return. So accounts is relevant to the company house and HMRC both, but tax return is relevant to only the HMRC, where we're going to look at how much tax I need to pay to HMRC. Sometimes we called it CT 600. So you're going to look at that. So three is very important: practice manager, accounts production, and the tax return production. Rest of the features we have, sometimes we might use it, sometimes we don't use it. For example, the VAT filer. If the client is VAT registered, you can use that. HMRC forms, then e-signature. You can send the email to the client, and the client can make a e-signature to approve the account rather than the client need to print it out and sign. And also you can see this AML center, anti-money laundering center. Here you can basically check the client anti-money laundering status, so it will automatically tell me the client is pass or client are default. For example, if you have a director, and if the director is a defaulter or have any sort of disqualification or ban to be a director from the company house, or if the credit score is really bad or anything the client have individually, the AML center will help me to find it out the client status. So as an accountant, we need to make sure we check the anti-money laundering status for every client, because the professional body, like for example AAT or ACCA, they can come back to you for a review and to see you check actually all the AML status for all of your clients. So very important. So three things I said is important for the Taxcalc: the practice manager, accounts production, and the tax return production. So on the practice management, you can see we have all the client names, so we can create a client here. It's very important to get used to with that one. The next one we have here, the accounts production. The accounts production will tell you the accounts, but obviously if you have already any client, you can see the name list here. But if it is new, then obviously you have to find. If you don't create a client under the practice management, you will not be able to find the client under the accounts production or under the tax return. So it's very important to remember that step. So first we use the practice manager to create the client. Now creating the client is quite straightforward. So if you open the practice manager, you can see here we have a create client. So you create the client here, and under the create client option you have to choose is an individual or it is a limited company. First we'll choose the limited company or partnership or trust. So limited company we choose, and as I said, even if you choose the limited company, you have to create another client under the individual, because you have to create the relationship between the client and the director. So let's click next. So client code, so I'll say the client code, you can say Star War, and name of the company, Star War Consultancy Limited, and is limited by share. So some company could have a limited by guarantee. For example, the CIS company normally limited by guarantee, but most of the company you will deal with your client, it will be limited by share. So Star Wars Consultancy Limited. So finish and open. So now we have created this company, Star Wars Consultancy Limited, and you can see all this information we have. We have to complete this information. Two information is very important, and that you definitely need in order to submit the accounts to company house and HMRC. So the first one is the company authentication code. It's very important. Without the company authentication code, you will not be able to submit the accounts to company house. And to submit the tax return to HMRC, you will need the company UTR number. It's very important. If you don't have it, you can always reorder one from HMRC, but make sure the address need to be correct. So let's have a look. So we will start with that one. It says little bit detail. So you go to do continue. So the client the company name limited by share. So there are few information here, date of incorporation, so date of liquidation, date of strike off if it's relevant to you, confirmation statement when it is due, and the country of incorporation, you can say England and Wales. And obviously this company is a simple company. This company does not actually exist, so we're just making up the way we want. But if you have all the company, you'll go to the company house and write all the accurate information here. All right, so this is the company registration number. You can pick any number you like. So let's say it. So you see, until the company is correct, it will show the rate. So that means this is not the right one. So obviously you have to make sure you're right. So the company registration number should be between 2 and 8 character. So you need to make sure it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that will take. Then rest of the information is not very important. So let's go to the next, continue. Now, unique tax reference number, very important. Without this one, you will not be able to submit the return to HMRC. So let's write it down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you can see here it says again rate. So this one is very important. If it doesn't match, it will always show invalid. You see this one, the unique tax reference number has to be 100% correct. Otherwise, it will say invalid. Now, this one you will receive from HMRC. Once you open your company, you will receive it from HMRC after 3 months. Sometimes if you don't receive it, you need to make sure you call the HMRC to ask for the company UTR number. It's not the individual UTR number for the self-assessment, but it is a company UTR number. The next one is the company authentication code. This one normally six number, or could be name, or could be the alphabet. So this one you can change. So when you open a company, first time you receive the company authentication code. So as soon as the company is approved, you receive the company authentication code from company house. So you can change it later on. So let's see if I said A, B, C, D, E, F. So normally 6 digit. So you can always change it once you receive it from the company house. You can make your one the way you like. All right, so the next information is the business classification or public record indicator. Is not very important, so you go for the next one. The next one is the business address. It's very important to have a business address. So we need to make sure we have the address. So business name and address. So if you want to add something new, you can always do that. But obviously, you can create a new address. So add a new business. We don't want to add a new business, but we want to add address later on. So let's have a look. The next one, the contact information. Here I will have the registered office address and I will have a trading address. So the new one, let's do what type of address we're looking at. For example, it is possible your registered office address is somewhere, but the business is trading somewhere else. So let's say if I say it 500 or maybe let's say 2A North Street, Town Barking, County Essex, postcode IG 11 9LA. So you can just use that our registered office address. If you want to add a business address, you can always do that. If the registered office address same like a business address, you can choose that as well. So that's it. Let's move to the next one. If you want to add the building or bank name and the sort code, you can do that one here. Then you have engagement. So when did you start engaging with this client? So date of engagement, then the date of the client lost, then 64-8 status. So this one is basically the authentication or the authorization for an agent to the client. For example, if you have a client, you need to authorize this client with the HMRC. Now, there is a different way you can do that. For example, there is a form called 64-8. You can download this form from HMRC website or from Google and complete this form, send it to HMRC by post. But if you have a software, commercial software, you can do this one with this software. And to do that, you need to make sure you have the agent ID. Without having a agent ID, you will not be able to do it. It's very important. Then the next one we have here, the consent management. This information you can write is a different GDRP rules, this and that, but obviously it's not part of your account. This is mainly the compliance. All right, service rendered and anti-money laundering. If you want to check the money laundering for that client, so what type of you need to enter the full name, the bank detail of the client, and the date of birth. Then this software will check the credit rating and tell like if there is an issue with that client. So verification, another event, SAR, this is suspicious activity report. This is mainly with the money laundering. If the client involved with money laundering or any other thing, how can you report? Then you have relationship here, so you need to create relationship. Remember that without creating relationship, you're not going to see the director detail on the account. So you need to make sure you create relationship. If you don't have the client here, you need to make sure you create one. The way we're creating here, the same way we're creating basically another client. So now we're making the client as a company. As I said before, we have to create another client individual. Then group structure, if it is a limited company, and if you have a group, for example, if you have a parent company, if you have a subsidiary, then you create the group account here. Then you have a share capital, share class. Normally it's ordinary share. We have 100 share, nominal value is 1, so you can create one. And shareholding, then notes, active work. This is not very relevant to your accounts. And the password you can create. So if you want to open this client, you have to enter the password. So for example, if you work in a practice, maybe you will be involved with few clients, another of your colleague will be involved with few client. In this case, what will happen, not everyone have the access to everyone client, so you should have a password for that. So for that reason, you will have a password, and then we're happy with that. We finish, and that's it. Now I'm going to create another client that I said that will be for the individual for the same company Star War, because Star War, because I need to find the director details. So the director name or the who running the business, you need to enter their name here. So for name, I'll say Islam. No, Islam it's a surname. So surname. Name is Sajid. So I'm the director for a Star War consultancy. That's what I'm writing my detail here. So this will be open. I really don't need to enter too much information here. Just the name and the gender, date of birth. If you write to enter the occupation, something you can write. Here I have to enter the unique tax reference for the individual and for the national insurance number, but we really don't have to because we are only doing for the company, not for individual tax return. So if I need to do my tax return as a director, I have to complete all this information. So just quickly do that. Now what will happen if we go back to that client, I can create the relationship. So for example, if I go back now, SD Star War, and you will see on the Star War consultancy, and we're going to see like this time we can create the relationship. So if you come back to the relationship and check the relationship, now obviously like you can see the director normally the relationship, and we need to check from here. So Star Wars Consultancy Limited. And here we have to add a relationship, and I'll show you how to do it. So if you don't see it here or add the relationship, we need to always do it, create the relationship. And if you write star, you'll see the individual name, Sajid Islam, because he created another account with that. So I'll say continue. Director since when? I can say like, for example, 1st of January 2020, for example. Continue. Save. Now the director name will be here. And now when I'm going to prepare my financial statement, what will happen? I'm going to I'll look at this name as well under the directors, because the director need to approve the accounts later on. And that's it. So this is our first step to create the account or create the client under the practice manager. So once we have done this one, So once you have done this one, we'll be able to now see this account under the accounts production. So now if I click the accounts production, if I write star, if I search, it should come Star Wire Consultancy Limited, continue, and we have to create the period. It's very important to create the period. So period means the year start and the end date. So for example, the new period, I would say 1st of April 2023 to 31st of March 2024. And we create the period. We need to make sure we know the client year ending, and looking at the bank statement, the same information has to have, the bookkeeping have to have during this period. So based on this accounting period, it's 12 month. So we'll say create. Now remember, if this is our first year of account, so you don't have to create the previous one. But uh, if this is our last year account, obviously if we have a comparative year, we have to create another year so that we can show the both year together. The same way you have to create the period. All right, so we'll stop this session here, and the next session will start from the period, creating and how to enter the trial balance, this trial balance, and prepare the accounts. Thank you very much.